Welcome everybody. I do believe we're up and running and live. It's time for another Friday live painting session. So today, I may have set myself a little bit too much of a challenge, but we'll see how it goes. So I've just taught a little short 2-day course on well, it was painting silver and also painting patterned cloth. And this morning I was reaching into the cupboard to get my mug out to make my morning coffee. And I noticed this little spotty mug, this one here. Little spotted mug. And I thought that would be brilliant to show the difference between colours in light and shadow. And I also got the yellow striped tablecloth, little tea cloth just recently as well. So there's a lot to cover today. But basically, it's a fun little subject, but there's something serious about this as well, because if you can paint something like this, if you can learn how to reduce things down, to simplify, to light and shadow colours, then you can paint almost anything, okay? So I'm going to attempt to reduce all of the local colours that we've got here down to pretty much 2 colours. Get all of the colours mixed and get them chucked onto the panel in hopefully roughly the right place. Do a bit of edge softening, which is when the magic happens, when suddenly you start to see things come to life. And then a few little highlights and details here and there, and hopefully the whole thing will come together. It might take me a little bit longer than normal to get there today, and it might be utter hubris that I think that I can paint all of this and make it look convincing in something like an hour, but we'll see. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. It's lovely to see you again, as usual. Let's whip straight over to the panel. So this is an ampersand 5x7" ampersand panel. Okay, I'm just going to prepare it really simply with, as I usually do, a little bit of oil with a little bit of solvent in it. This is just to help the brush flow, help the paint go onto the panel. It's just linseed oil, nothing special. And I'm going to wipe it back with some kitchen roll to make sure that I've got as thin a covering as I can possibly have, pretty much on there. We want it really nice and thin, okay? What would probably be a good idea, I love doing this because I think it's very useful for people to see. If I do a quick screen share on the live feed of this photograph in chromaMagic, and we'll do a quick investigation of some of these colors, okay, to see what we've got here. Here we go. So this is the reference photo. The chromaMagic app, descriptions of how to get this, if you're watching this and haven't seen this before, are in the description. So I'm going to go through a rough idea of the colors in this subject in roughly the order that I'm going to paint them. So the background first, we've got in the shadow, low value, close to neutral, but not that close, orange, or a brown if you like. I mean, brown is just a low chroma, low value orange. In the light, the chroma drops, you see that, and it gets much closer to grey. Obviously the value goes up, it's a little bit lighter, and then we've got deeper shadow here. Pretty self-evident for the mug. We are about this colour in the light part of it, a very light cream, should be fairly self-evident. And in the shadow side, it's not that dark actually, but it has got a little bit more chroma. And when I say chroma, I mean intensity of colour. It's a bit less grey. There's a little bit more colour in here. And that's because with a very low chroma, low intensity local colour, like the colour of this mug, you will get a little bit more chroma, a little bit more intensity to the colour in the shadow than you do in the light, okay? Halftone is going to be somewhere in between, something like that. So we got light, shadow, halftone. Now it gets interesting because we've got the cloth. So in the cloth, in the light, the cloth is about a value 8. Don't worry too much about what you can see of the color here. It's not a bright purple. There's a bit of a purple tinge to it, but it's quite close to gray. In the shadow, what color is it? Ooh, it's brown, right? This is the white stripes in the shadow. Note the value. We're down to like a value 4 most of the time. Interesting. It's not very different from this color in the shadow, really, just a little bit darker, okay? So we've got light, shadow. The yellow stripes, now they look much more intense than they are. They really do. So here they are in the light. It's not that intense. Here they are in the shadow. It's a brown. Also notice we've got a little bit extra chroma again. Light, shadow. And then we've got all of these lovely little spots on the mug. So say, let's pick a couple out. So the yellow one, it's a light yellow, but it's not at the very highest chroma. So I won't just be putting cad yellow on, I'll be knocking it back a bit. And that's what it is in the light. And then we've got a corresponding yellow blob in the shadow, which looks like a dull orange compared to the light. Light, shadow. Nice. So what about the red? We've got quite an intense red here. Intense kind of a blue red. Still not the highest chroma we can get in paint, but it's close. And here's the red in the shadow. What color is it? Really, really low value orange red. Nice. And then we've got the green. Strong phthalo green, blue green, right? And this in the shadow we can see over here loses almost all of its chroma. It goes very dark. Right, and the blue, this is kind of in the half tone. It's not quite in the light, but it's close. Again, it's quite close to grey. Look how close to grey that colour is. It's a purpley blue, quite close to grey. And this is the same colour in the shadow on the inside of the mug. Very close to grey. So even though you might think that there's a lot of colour in this still life, if you went in and you painted it all with kind of close to the full chroma that you can get in paints, and you'd be tempted to do that, it would probably end up a little bit too chromatic, right? Let me just have a quick look at the comments and see if I got any questions. Yeah, I've actually done 3 live sessions, Duncan, already this week, so this is the 4th. Linda says, this looks like a painter's nightmare. Or, you know, a lot of fun, depending on how it goes, right? Stephanie, now this is really close to what we did with your jug, right? Really, really close to what we did with your little picture. Tipu, yeah, I stick the panel up there with blue tack. Thanks, Fran. Yeah, that's right. Just blue tack. Michelle, you didn't have to frighten me. She says the reflected light looks tricky. It does. It does. But what we're mostly after is just getting the main colours on there. So colours for the background first. We want, what did I say? In the shadow, like over the right-hand side here, we're like a value 3. So I'm just going to get raw umber. Little bit of white. Bring it up to about a value 3. And maybe put a little bit of black in there as well, just to... Black is a good chroma dropper. Just drop the chroma a little bit. I've got my trusty value scale here, so I can check my values as I go. So this is a Munsell value scale, link also in the description. And what it does is it allows you to take those values that I just showed you in the chromaMagic app. All those little color swatches that we just saw, each of them had a value number assigned to them, and they correspond to this value scale. So this is where the magic happens really, is translating those values from the chromaMagic app to the painting via the value scale. And And it's a really, really good way to train your eye to see value really well. So that's about a value 3, so that's the shadow. In the light, we were about a value 4 to a 5. This is the background still, and the chroma dropped, so I'm going to use more black this time. Still a little bit of raw umber, but not so much. I realise I'm going at a bit of a breakneck pace with the mixing today, but that's because I want to get onto those colours. And there's a lot to do, you know, it's like in the time, and I don't want to keep you waiting too long before you see what happens when we get onto the interesting bits. Still a bit too light. Bringing it down, down, down. So I want this to, you could say it's cooler, but that wouldn't be really very accurate. I want this mix to be lower chroma than this one. Higher value, but lower chroma, which is why I'm using more black, so it gets closer to neutral. Because the background is actually a neutral grey, so you get a little bit of chroma in the shadows and less chroma in the light. That's looking about right, about a value 5-ish, so I'll put that kind of in the middle, so low value, high value, have that in the middle. That's the background colours mixed. I'll modulate them a little bit as I paint them on. So let's mix the colours for the mug. I'll start with the shadow colour. It's probably a bit too much white. This is going to be mostly raw umber and white to about a value 4 to 5, I think. About value 5. Yeah, let's just do raw umber and white. I think that will work fine. If you have a different raw umber to me, you might get very different results. Some raw umbers are really, really green. It's probably one of the most varying colours in paint across different manufacturers, paint makers, which is really frustrating because it's such a useful colour. It's like the most useful colour in the world, especially for still life painters. What did I say? I wanted about a value 5. Yeah, that should be all right. Shadow of the mug. Notice that the shadow side of the mug is about the same value as the light side of the background. Sally says, are you going to put a grid on it? Yeah, I think, Sally, you must be in the community, right? So you should see there, I posted a high resolution version of the photo, the reference photo with a just like a cross grid on it. Light side. I'm going up to about a value 8. Get my white out. Raw umber. I don't think that's going to be, I think that's probably going to be a little bit lower chroma, a little bit duller than I would want. I think I want a little bit more chroma. I'm going to put a tiny touch of transparent red oxide. So easy to overdo this, especially with a very light colour. And a tiny touch of Cad yellow. Just to give it a little bit of life, a little bit more chroma, a little bit more colour. And I want about a value 8 here. What have I got? Looks about right. I think it still wants a little bit more colour in it though. It looks a bit dull. A little bit of Cad yellow, a little bit of transparent red oxide. So basically I'm just adding orange. I'm adding like an orange to it. That's gone too yellow now. Are we still an 8? Pretty much. Bit dark maybe now actually. These low chroma colours are like lighter value low chroma colours. Pretty tricky to mix. I want that to go back a little bit more towards orange. It's definitely gone too yellow. I'm just kind of judging this sort of by eye really, looking at what the colour looks like on the chromaMagic app, looking at the photo, making sure that I get, that looks like about a value 8, that looks pretty good. I might have a little bit too much chroma in it, but it's not the end of the world. the light. So that's a value 8, so I'll put it up there. So I've got shadow and light for the mug. There will be like a half tone on the mug in between, but I'll just mix between these two. Richard says, how do you get access to the photo? But for the high-res photo, I share it with people who are in my online school, Richard. So the school is basically it's a collection of courses, including my 2 main courses, which is one on colour called the Keys to Colour, which is basically Munsell approach to colour, and form, and another one called the Foundations of Form, which is a value only course, which teaches how to model form. And then there's also the community, which is the best bit, actually. A really nice, busy community on this this software platform that it looks like Facebook, but it's not. So there's no ads or anything annoying like that. So you get the courses, you get the community, and you also get for the Friday Lives a materials list and a high-res photo. And it's not too pricey, I don't think. It's like $33 a month. I'm going to do this, mix the colors for the stripes next. Okay. That would be an interesting one to do. So let's do the white first, the light part. So that went down to about a value 8, and it was slightly purple-blue, wasn't it, remember? So I'm going to put a little bit of cobalt in, little bit of, just a tiny amounts though, really tiny amounts, because I need the chroma to be low. I'm going to mostly bring it down to a value 8 with black. So I've got a little bit of red, a little bit of blue, but mostly black. So I'm mixing a very, very low chroma purple of about a value 8. I'm going to put these colors on like really, really simply in a very blocky way, so that we can just see, like, it, you know, is just the color enough to create the space? That'd be enough of that. I might need a bit more. It's only a little panel today, but... And I was putting this panel up, and I've been painting on 8x10 panels so much lately for these demos. I thought, you know what, that panel looks tiny. How am I going to paint this in that tiny, tiny little space? I'm sure I'll figure it out. Value 8. So this is the cloth in light. Would you rather have the palette like full screen? Let's make the palette bigger so you can see what I'm doing on the palette, right? And in shadow, it was like a value 3, like about down here, I think, if I'm right. Similar kind of to the background. 3 or 4, maybe. Let's make it a 4 so it differentiates from the background a bit. But again, I'm just going to go white. This is the white stripes, remember? Dun, 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 dun. In the background, where the cloth is in shadow. And then once I've got these colors mixed, I'm gonna whack them on the panel, and then we should hopefully start to see the little world in which the cup is sitting begin to emerge. Now again, the white obviously is very low chroma because it's basically white. So I have a little bit more chroma in the shadows. Am I down to a 4 yet? Not quite. That might be a little bit too much chroma. Bring a little bit of black in, and then lighten it again with some white. I go through this. Oh, I know I'm always saying this every time I do a live stream, but I go through this Old Holland white so quickly. It's nice paint, but it doesn't go very far. I don't know if it's the pigment loading or what it is. That'll do about a value 4. So this is the stripes in shadow. So that's a value 5 here. That was a value 3, so I'll put it in between. Value 4. So the yellows, this is a bit more interesting. The mug looks like a Bridget Riley. I don't know, is it? Let's have a look. Got it here. It's an Emma Bridgewater, made in Stoke-on-Trent. It's a very nice mug. Alan says, which red are you using on your palette? It's quinacridone rose. Alan, I've got here. Richard says, are photos from past videos available to new subscribers? In theory, yes, because I post up the Friday Lives in the Friday Live group. But from the earlier ones, that's only the more recent ones, probably the last, I don't know, few months are there anyway. But what I need to do is set up a proper little reference library on there with all of the photos. So yes and no. Yes, they are available, but I haven't got them all in an easy to download format yet, but that is coming, so they will be. Hello, Wanda, it's good to see you. Interesting. So Chris says the mug is white to me. Okay, so here's an interesting thing about the mug. Here's the actual mug, right? The lid of this pot of medium is an actual white. So you can see, hopefully, you can see the difference between the two. It's not white. It's cream. It's a little bit off-white. And those little differences, they really matter. Because I want to be able to show that that mug is ceramic. And the way that I show that is by putting the little highlights in. And they need to be lighter than the lighter side of the mug. All will hopefully become clear. Yeah, I love that song too. My 11-year-old boy is in a band. He plays keyboards. And unfortunately, the bassist, who is also 11, is obsessed with that tune. And every time they get together to practice, he just stands around and plays that tune over and over and over again. So the light side of the yellow, right? I need to get some more white out first. It's not quite as high chroma as we think. So you might be tempted to just whack it in with straight cad yellow, but that would be a mistake because it would be too intense. So I want to drop the chroma a little bit. I do want it to be like light-ish, but a little bit darker than my cad yellow, which is about a value 8. So I'll get some cad yellow. If I want to drop the chroma of a yellow, raw umber is really good to do that with, because it's actually a yellow orange raw umber. And then I'll get a little bit of white to offset the raw umber. That's going to be too, I think that's a lot too greenish yellow, right? When I put the raw umber in, it also sent it a little bit too greenish yellow. Definitely wants to be a lot more orange than that, and it's too dark. So I'm going to put in a load of more white, and I want it to be more orange, so I'm going to bring in some transparent red oxide again. I could use the quinacridone rose for that, but it's very, very powerful, so it will send it very, very quickly a lot more orange. Getting there, still a bit too green. So the way I pick up small amounts of paint is I kind of slide the edge of my knife into the paint. We're getting there. I think it's still a bit too green though. Looking at the color swatch on chromaMagic. Now I think we're getting too dark. A bit more white. Might actually have been better if I'd have just mixed transparent red oxide with the cad yellow. I might have got there quicker. But the thing is, like, for me, I think of mixing a color and getting the color that I want as like taking a color on a journey. And it's just a question of how many steps that journey needs to be. So I want about a value 7 here. That looks about right, I would say, about a 7 probably. Yeah, I think that's good. It could probably be a little bit more orange, but it's not too bad. So we'll pop that there. That's the yellow in the light. It's a lot lower chroma than you'd think. Simon says, why does raw umber turn the yellow greenish? Because you're mixing a yellow with another. Really, raw umber is best thought of as a yellow. So even less of the the orange is being reflected back from the cad yellow paint. So, you know, the way I think about colors mostly, especially if I'm changing the hue of something, well, let's wheel back a little bit there. The way I think about colors firstly is whether they're high chroma or low chroma. So my raw umber and my ivory black, these are on my palette to be chroma droppers. I don't do complement mixing because it's too unreliable and unpredictable. You get some really, really funny colors when you do that. They can be beautiful and they can be just not what you want. So these are my chroma droppers, and white, of course. And then all of the others, colors here, are just ways of pulling a color one way or the other, adding or reducing chroma, usually adding chroma, or pulling the hue one way or the other. So the reason I've got transparent red oxide and green gold here is that if I've got a low value color and I want it to go more orange, I can add more transparent red oxide. If I want it to go more towards green yellow, then I can put in the green gold. So the yellow in the shadow, it's low value, it's like a value 3. I'm going to start with raw umber, but it's got more chroma than that. So I'm going to put in some transparent red oxide as well. And I'm going to bring in a little bit of cad yellow to bring up the value. And I'm doing that because I don't want to lose chroma. If I bring up the value with white, it will be less intense. What did we want? Like a value 3? A little bit dark still. So bring a bit more yellow in. I mean, anything that's lighter than this color that I've got in value is going to lighten it. So it just depends on whether I want to drop the chroma, in which case I'd use white. Or if I want to, if it's an orange, if I want to keep the chroma, then I'd be more likely to use the yellow. That looks like it's about maybe a little bit dark, a little bit darker than a 3. Bring it up just a tad more. So little variations in the chroma and the value, especially the value, can make a big difference. You don't have to do it this way. Obviously, you can kind of get the color in there and then a bit more chroma, slightly higher value, and then adjust it on the panel as you see fit. You don't have to match the values in the reference photo either. You know, a lot of the time you might not want to do that, but I think it's really a really useful exercise. It's a really useful thing to learn to do, because for one thing, it shows you where you estimate things wrong, and that's a really useful thing to know. So it's good to guess it and then use something like chromaMagic to check what you've actually got and like how close you really are. I think that's probably about right. So that's all I'm going to mix for now. Let's see how they look. It won't all really come together until everything is painted in, but here I've got enough to get most of it in. So I've got the background here, light and shadow. I've got the mug, light and shadow. And I've got the cloth, for which I need 2 sets of light and shadow for the white stripes, and light and shadow for, that's a bit darker, for the yellow stripes. Yeah, complement mixing is, a lot of people seem almost religiously attached to it. It's actually, I think it can slow down your development of your understanding of color. There are just easier ways to do it, to adjust chroma. Hello, Kathy, good to see you. At least he's not a drummer, Michelle says. Yeah, that's true. Although he has been getting interested in playing drums lately. Oh dear. No, he actually plays jazz piano. He's really good. You know, I mean, for an 11-year-old. I'll have to record him and stick him on a little video on Blue Sky or something. And the other boy plays the violin. We're quite a musical little household. All right, so we're back up here. I'm going to sketch out where everything goes first. So I don't, hopefully don't make a total hash of it. I'm going to mix a raw umber and white mix for sketching it out. Just quickly, I don't really mind what value this is. I just want to, you know, something there to start roughing out where things go. And I'm going to use I'll use a hog filbert, Cornelison's hog filbert. What's the blue again? I've got cobalt blue here. Cobalt blue, which just went a little bit of that into the color for the light part of the stripes. Hello, David. Good to see you. So, you know, if you were going to divide this with the grid, I tend to do this just really quickly by eye, but there's, you know, you can measure it as well. It just helps you kind of get things roughed in a little bit more quickly. So I'm going to be pretty quick with this. Furthest left point. So let's get the division between the background and the foreground in first. That's about here. So this is all background. This is the cloth. The mug. Left-hand side about there. And I would say the middle of the mug is just to the right. I often put things just to the right of the middle when I do these photos. It's like habit. I don't know I'm doing it. I suspect it's because I like to get the cast shadow in as well. So for the left side of the mug, I'm going to take that measurement and replicate it over there, just to make sure I get this. This is a nice way to kind of construct things, if you like, so that you have at least a fighting chance of getting your ellipses something like right. And then I want, like, how high does it go? Bottom of the ellipse, top of the ellipse, probably something like that. And the bottom a little bit more than halfway down. So we'll put the bottom of the mug about here. I'm not too bothered about the accuracy of the drawing with this one. I mostly just want to get those colours down and see how we do, which is a great get out for me, isn't it? I can just say, yeah, I don't really mind about the drawing on this one. What a weak excuse. I mean, I'll try and get it something like right, because drawing is important, as well as getting the colours right. I think my mug is a little bit skinny. It's hard to judge until the colours go down now. Until the values are in, it can be pretty difficult to judge if something is right or not. Something like that. Handle. It's a little bit in perspective, so it actually joins the mug a little bit behind what we can see, like about there, you know, so only comes out about this far. About there, like that. So what's important for me to put in now, though, is for the cloth, like where is it in shadow and where is it in light? So there's two kind of diagonal shadows. So this is the division between the background and the cloth right here. And there's a shadow on the left. So I want to get this angle about right, which is something like that. So everything this side of that line is shadow and everything this side is light. Then we get the cast shadow of the mug, which comes right over, like about there, probably. That's the cast shadow of the mug. And let's block it all out because it comes over here and then it actually goes up the wall a little way as well. This is all cast shadow of the mug as well. Right. But this part is the cloth, so shadow, light of cloth, shadow, light of cloth. The shadow on the left in the background comes right the way over here. So this is light, shadow, light, shadow. Let's start putting some paint on and see what happens. The daffodil painting. I wonder which one that was. I imagine that was quite a while ago. I probably don't have the painting anymore. So I like to get a little bit of oil on my brushes, but I mean the tiniest amount. You don't want it sliding around all over the place. So I dip them in a little bit of oil, just linseed oil, and then I wipe off as much as I can, just to kind of break them in. So I've got two brushes here, light and shadow for the background. Shadow color. It's going to look really dark when it goes on, right? Until all the rest of the colors on, it's going to be difficult to judge anything. So your main job really at the beginning is just to get things established. Get as much of the panel covered with what you need to cover it with, without messing about. And then you can start to think about what are the relationships like between those colors, because the chromaMagic app is really useful. You know, if you want, you know, you can use it to teach yourself an awful lot about color. But what you don't want is for it to take over your ability to judge. It should be, I think anyway, my feeling is it should be used as a tool to help you learn to judge color values, especially in chroma, better. And then gradually, bit by bit, you get to a point where you rely on it less and less. But I think it's really, really useful. So here's the background in the light, lower chroma, right? And slightly higher value. It's really, really useful. Definitely, if you haven't used anything like that before, to give you a really good idea, especially if you're at the beginning of your kind of, or nearer at the beginning of your learning journey, or if you struggle with color. I think we want more black in those shadows, especially here. It's a fantastic tool for training your eye. When I say your eye, that's kind of shorthand for your visual system, if you like, your perception, your visual perception. Okay, now I'm going to put the cloth on in the shadow, just the shadow colors in the cloth. I'm just going to wing it. This is probably such a bad idea, but I'm just going to kind of wing it and see if I can sort of get the stripes in about the right place. You know, but I'm not going to do any, I need two brushes about the same size. So I'm not going to do any edge handling on it or anything. One for the light, one for the shadow, right? So it's just this triangle here and this triangle here. So I've got some cloth shadow. So I'll put the stripes in first. I've got some stripe back here. And then there's only really one more, isn't there, which comes about there. But I may need to, looks like it crosses the bottom of the photo about there, so I want about that angle on it, probably. I'm going to ignore the fact that the cloth ends there, and I'm going to pretend there's another little bit of stripe there. So the white part, this is the white part on the palette of the cloth in shadow. This is going to look really dark when it goes down. Over on the other side. It's almost straight here. The line is almost straight, so we've got a stripe here, just by the side of the mug. Oh, just a second, I just remembered something. Joe, could you turn the pizza sauce off? I left the pizza sauce on the oven. It's probably drying up. Could you turn it off? Thank you. As regular visitors will know, on a Friday, Friday night is homemade pizza night for us. And I started the sauce early today. And I forgot to turn it off. So we've got another stripe. We've got one about there, and we've got one about here. I'm just trying to kind of line them up about right, just guessing the perspective, you know, we'll see how we go. Can you imagine, burn the pizza sauce? I mean, we could make some more, we've got enough tomatoes, but I don't like waste. And I put it on, and then I came in and started setting up the live stream, and I think I forgot to turn it off. We'll have like a teaspoon of deep brown pizza sauce left. This is starting to look like shadow already, right? It does to me anyway. Burak, I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for asking. Rooftax says, are you aware of the Boston School? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Brilliant painters, Boston School painters. Like a marriage of classical drawing with impressionist colour. Really beautiful. Tarbell and all of those painters. Yeah, I love that. I love that stuff. Okay. Have I just mixed my brushes? No, good. The white stripe in shadow. The thing is, you probably wouldn't, if you just eyeballed these colours, you know, and you didn't have a lot of experience with painting, you probably wouldn't be putting these colours in the shadow. But and maybe they're not right, you know, but let's wait and see. I'm doing it deliberately this way rather than like just adjusting as we go, so that you can see kind of how wrong they look at at the beginning. This is the plan anyway. You can see how wrong they look. It's roasted pizza sauce, right? I suppose so. Black Peppers, what a brilliant name. Are you using one Neewer 660 for both the stage and the painting area? No, right. So what I do is I take all of my reference photos by daylight. So I took this photo earlier on today in daylight. So I have a nice big window in my studio. So I take the photo in natural light. And then at the moment, I've got two Neewer 660s, one on the left and one on the right, because the camera needs a good even light source across the surface of the painting. So when I'm painting, when I'm streaming live, you know, I've got one light either side because you know, for the sake of the stream, it needs to be well lit. David says, this is going to be a classic case of it will look okay when it's all in. I hope so. I hope it's going to be, I hope it is going to be a case of that. What was that art reference, Natalia says? The Boston School. You can look them up. What value do you cook your sauce? Well, I like my pizza sauce to be about a value 3, chroma 6. You know, your mileage may vary. I put a lot of tomatoes in it. It has tomatoes, obviously, balsamic vinegar, splash of red wine, a little bit of brown sugar, not too much, some oregano, and salt and pepper. You would call it, I almost said oregano because I know you call it oregano in the US, don't you? But here, where we speak proper English, in the UK, we call it oregano, right? These are not similar brushes, but you know, this is a really horrible, I don't know why I've got this out. This is actually a really horrible Actually, it's not too bad. It feels quite soft. I guess because I've used it a lot of time, and I've cleaned it a lot with olive oil soap. It's quite soft. Hog flat. And this is a Rosemary's Evergreen Long Flat Synthetic. Let's put the yellow in first, and we'll use the nice Rosemary's brush for that. We'll put the colours in the stripes, the yellows in the light first, right? So this one's supposed to go like off the bottom. I haven't got the perspective quite right, let's be honest. This is supposed to go off the bottom like that. This one will come down the side of the mug, about like this. I'm trying to think of keep in mind that I need to get the stripe in between at about the same width as well for it to work. Look, that's coming right already, because you've got the white here is kind of functioning, if you like, as the white, but it's too white at the moment. I was right. See, it's low chroma yellow. Am I going to be able to fit all of these in? I think this one goes very slightly angled to the left. I think these might be too fat, because I've got to fit another one in between, and I haven't got enough room. Oh, I'm going to have to widen this with a little bit extra of the white. When I put that colour in, they don't quite match up, do they? Not to worry. I did say the drawing was going to be rubbish, right? It's all about the colour, honestly. Never mind the horrible drawing and my inaccurate stripes. We'll see what we can fix when I put the white in. So this is actually like, we know what this is. We read it as white. I mean, hopefully this is going to read it as white, but it is actually a very low chroma purple, isn't it? Remember, we mixed a purple for this, a low chroma purple. It's got a little bit of glare on it because I'm using downward brush strokes, which when you have a light either side of your easel, like I have at the moment, you get a little bit of glare on the strokes. So hopefully I can adjust a little bit the width, comparative width of these stripes, and clean things up a little bit now. But it's coming, right? When I say it's coming, I mean you can start to feel that this is a pattern which is partially in light and partially in shadow. The colours look wrong when you put them down. This is why, you know, once you've done a lot of painting, you would look at something like this and you would say, yeah, I know I'm going to guess those colours in the shadow way too light. So let's overshoot deliberately. You know, once you get used to it, that's what you would do. Getting a little bit of yellow in my purple, which is a shame. But if you haven't reached the point where you know that you're going to guess those colours wrong, this is the value, I think, of the chromaMagic app together with the value scale. It's such a powerful combination. Because even if you get like the hues are slightly out, or if the you know, if the chroma is slightly out, as long as you've got your values right, visually it will work. Could probably go even a little bit darker with these stripes, but let's keep it really simple for now. This is probably going to be one of those ones where I do quite a bit of messing about at the end, because I start enjoying the painting and do a lot of fiddling, like long after everybody's gone and the kids have already eaten their pizza, I'll be softening edges. So no edge softening. No edges have been harmed so far in the making of this painting. This is just blocked in. Just blocked in. But the colours look about right. The only thing I would say possibly at the moment is the colour that I've chosen for the white stripes is possibly no, stop it. Is possibly a bit too light. I think I could have gone darker and it would have worked. But let's see. Let's see, because we haven't got everything in yet. When you do the edges, that's, you know, it reaches a whole different level. Let's get the brush, let's get the mug in. So I'm going to use a couple of large-ish hog flats for this too. This may take a little bit longer because obviously I've got to model a form. I've got to try and get the ellipses sometimes, something like right. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint the whole form in as if it was it didn't have any pattern on it, and then I will wipe out the areas where the dots go and put those in. So the light side comes all the way over to here. This is pretty much kind of classical 3/4 light, actually. You wait till the edge handling happens at the end. That's when the whole thing starts to kind of makes really strong visual sense. Edges are hugely, hugely important. But we can get a long way just with this. Half tone is going to be somewhere between the two. Now the half tone belongs to the light, so I'm going to make it slightly lighter than halfway between the shadow and the light. Minimum amount of form modeling. Another brush for the shadow. Hopefully this is going to be about the right value. You want it to be lighter than the background a little bit. It's maybe a little bit close to the background. Lighten that a little bit. But I'm just painting blocks of light and shadow, you know, that's all I'm doing. But if your colours are good, even, you know, before you've done any detail, before you've done any of the bits that you kind of look at and you think, oh, I can't wait to do that bit, this bit's going to look really good, you know, at this point it should start to work. This is basically just, at the moment, is a colour blocking. And as I say, you can use that app to kind of train your visual system to show you where you would make a mistake, where you would judge something wrong. And that's a lot of what I'm kind of trying to do on these streams, is to show you things are rarely what they seem. That's not really what I mean. Things are rarely, but it kind of is. Colours are rarely what you would assume them to be. So I'm wondering what the handle is partly in shadow anyway, so it wants to be like a lower value. I'll just rough it in for now. This will be like, I would estimate that's about a value 6 I'm putting in there. No detail yet, remember? None. Loose, it's not even accurately painted, you know, but it's starting to come. So I want to kind of finish modeling this cup a little bit, the mug a little bit, before I put any of the I'm going to go a little bit lighter on the far side here before I put any of the spots on, because it's going to be really hard to adjust these colors after I put the spots on. So if I don't get it looking like something right here at this point, I'm not going to have a cat and hell's chance of making it look better later. I think this value here is quite a bit darker inside the mug, because here we've got reflected light bouncing into it, and here there isn't so much. So I think we have a darker value on the inside there. Yeah, that looks good. And I'll use my shadow color here to neaten up my handle a bit. Still no edge softening, apart from, you know, a little bit of here, you know, on the inside of the form of the jug, a little bit. I think I might be too light even with my yellow. Let me check the camera exposure. Camera exposure might be a bit high. Yeah, possibly. Let's bring the exposure down a little bit. Might have a bit too much light on the panel. Overall, value-wise, I think it's not too bad. I think my yellow stripes and the white here, the white and the yellow stripes, both can come down a bit in value, but we'll do that in a little bit. I'm trying to think, you know what, I think I'll do the edge, I'll do that, and I'll do the edge handling now. I think it'll be good to do it now. So I've painted these just as really, really simplified blocks at the moment, okay? But you can already see, hopefully, you know, if you take your eyes away from the reference photo for a second, and try not to think about, is it a perfect rendition of the reference photo? Because it isn't going to be, because I haven't softened any of the edges yet, right? And I haven't modulated any of the color. It's a color blocking at the moment. Certainly these values do need to come down a little bit here. But hopefully you can feel that this is a pattern that continues from here to here, and this is areas in shadow, and this is in light. This area is in shadow, and this area is in light. You know, you should get that feeling at this point. Let's start. Let's start building things a bit now. So I'm going to bring a little bit more light into the background here. Bring this value up just a little bit to make that a bit more clearer that we've got light there. I've got to be careful with my edge softening here, because I've given myself kind of a difficult job, really, because I've got to soften each one individually. So let's start with the yellow ones. because what I need to try and avoid doing is getting the color from one stripe into the color for the next stripe. So I'm just going to start softening the values. Work a little bit of the shadow into the yellow a bit further down as well, which will drop the value a little bit. Then the white stripe. Probably should have done all the yellow first, or used a separate brush for it, but not to worry. Yeah, nice. We'll soften a little bit less where it's close. This is the cast shadow, basically. The cast shadow of the cast by the mug. So this will get softer the further it moves away. From the object that's casting it, which is the mug. So this is just this is a dry brush. There's no paint on, well, there is some paint on it now, but when I got it out, there wasn't any paint on it. It's just a dry brush. And I'm wiping it every time I do a little bit of softening with it. I'm wiping it. And I want to bring down a little bit, I think. Reaffirm the yellows and make it go a little bit darker when they go further back. Let's see if this works. It's tricky to paint it this way, actually, by blocking it all in and then softening. It would have been easy. I want to do it this way for the sake of the demonstration, but it would have been easier to kind of soften as I went. So I'm bringing down the value a little bit of the yellow stripes, because I think they went, the value was a little bit high maybe. And then for the white, I'll do the same. I mix a bit of the shadow color into the light color, and when we're further back here, closer to the shadow, I'll bring the value down a little bit. Starting to feel like a more gentle change from light to shadow now. Big soft brush. I'm going to soften this also. This is a watercolor wash brush. I'm going to soften everything in the shadow now. See, the nice thing about having an oil layer down before you start is that when you come to do this part of the painting, when you're just kind of softening everything, the oil layer makes the softening process really, really a lot easier. If you don't have enough paint on your panel, it's almost impossible to do this. It just basically just doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. Soften all the shadow into the light. There's inevitably a little bit of dragging the colour from one stripe to the next, which is awkward, but I can't really avoid it. But you can see the difference the softening makes, you know, the edge handling, the softening when you get into that part of the process. And I've still got, because I mixed all my colours separately at the start, I've still got them all here, you know, so I can just go back in for where I need to bring something out a little bit more. Correct the drawing or whatever. Got something funny going on around here. So, oh, incidentally, what I was saying about the values, you know, with making sure that the value of the light side of the mug didn't get too light, so that when I put little highlights in, with a hard edge, I usually use the palette knife for this. It makes them appear. It makes everything appear, it gives it the impression of ceramic, basically. So there would be one here. The edges need to be hard, because this is a shiny surface. Little one there. So I'm thinking, what's the minimum that I can get away with in order to show the surface? I can't put this one in at the top yet because I need to put that red dot in before I do. But there's one back here I can put in. So this is pure white. Just putting it on with the with the palette knife so I get nice, really hard edges. Anywhere else, there's maybe a little one here. That's probably a little bit too light, so I'll be careful how I put it on. And then we've got one in here, actually. Now, I'm pretty sure there shouldn't be a highlight in there, so I guess that's probably from something reflecting on it. Then we have not full white, but a suggestion of a strip of highlight which goes up the body of the mug there. Now it's starting to look like ceramic, and that's just because I managed to keep these values low enough that when I put the white on, it's slightly higher in value. Still need to sort out something here that's looking a little bit funny. Let's see if we can sort that out. I think this lighter part of the background should come a little bit further down. And I'm losing the clarity of my stripes back here as well. Because I did a lot of softening. But I want the softness in there because that's a shadow area. So there's a little bit of push and pull going on back here. But yeah, that's looking better. Oh, I just pulled that white highlight all over the place. Just playing around with the edges. Okay, so now it's got much more of a feeling of three-dimensionality, right? Now that we've got a bit more edge handling in there. See, I think this shadow as well back here goes a bit darker about there. Yeah, and then maybe a bit darker here too. I'm just bringing in a little bit of raw umber and black, and then just bring that shadow down a little bit. I think I've got just enough wiggle room to lighten the value on the light side of the mug just a little bit. Try not to overdo it. I have unfortunately pretty much run out of the light, the nice light color with the extra chroma that I mixed for the light side of the jug. I've pretty much run out of that now, which is a pain, because I'm losing chroma in the light, and I liked it with a little bit of chroma in it. But the main thing is that, you know, with the colors that looked wrong, do they actually work? Once you kind of get them in there and you handle the edges and all of that stuff. Down a bit in chroma, down a bit in value in the shadow. Make these little adjustments. Kind of get everything reading a little bit better. Make all of the colors read right. And this, the handle is like all soft because it's in shadow basically. So if any time something is in shadow, I'll really soften it a lot. We can bring like a little bit of light here. A little bit at the top. There, we keep everything else soft and in the background. Nice. Oh, let me catch up with the comments. I was so that was tricky. Doing the edge handling with those stripes in there as well was tricky. That was the trickiest part of it. Yeah, I think there is a bit of there might be a little bit of an optical effect going on with the stripes next to each other. A little higher value as we come further out though. I'm sure Anthony Bartulis could tell you what's going on there, if there is an optical effect. He's I think he probably wouldn't mind if I said that he's quite obsessed with those things, with understanding them. You know, he does this thing called like the diagnostic painter, which is a lot to do with figuring out, you know, these kind of optical illusions that can happen in a painter and how to route around them. But those colours that looked so wrong were right. Black Peppers says, is your reference printed out or are you drawing from a screen? It's from a screen. So the way I do a lot of this is I actually have a monitor. It's a big screen, but it's on the other side of the studio, so it's about 20 feet from me. And I monitor what I'm sending out on the stream. And it's really handy because it means I have a small version of the reference photo next to my painting across the other side of the room. So without actually needing to move back from the easel, I get a visual check of what my painting looks like. I mean, obviously it's on a screen, so it's not perfect, but it gives me a kind of a quick visual check of if my shapes are all right, if my values are all right, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's really, really handy. And actually, sometimes lately I've started just setting it up that way, even when I'm not streaming, just so you know, I spend a lot of time looking over my left shoulder. At what I can see on the camera, because I can see the reference photo and my painting side by side, really, really small, because they're on the other side of the room. It's almost like working sight size, but from a photo. This edge is too hard here. See this edge here? That's too hard. It's not reading right as a shadow of the mug. That's better. So the mug is pretty much there. So now I've got to think about getting some dots on there. MoveTac says, I'm seeing more chroma in the white stripes in the light. Do you mean more intense colour, like they're more purple looking? Yeah, possibly. Could be. David says, oh, this has gone right to the heart of the matter. David says, one thing has been bothering me. Do you make your own pizza bases? David, I'm really sorry to disappoint you, but no, we don't. We don't make them ourselves. We buy the bases. We've got a bakery near us called Hobbs, and they just make the most amazing stuff, and they do sourdough pizza bases, frozen in little balls, and you buy these little frozen balls, and then you defrost them and you thaw them out. Oh God, I'm a terrible person. I don't make my own base. We do roll them out though. Lots of discussion on the stripes and whether they're too light or too dark, or you know. Just try this for a second. Just try this. So this happens quite a lot when I'm streaming as well. It doesn't bother me at all. I mean, it's fine. But if you don't have the photo there and you're not obsessed with getting as accurate to the photo as you possibly can, you know, this is the question you want to be asking yourself. It's like, the point isn't, for me anyway, and this isn't just a get out clause, honestly, or an excuse. The point for me isn't to get as close to the reference photo as possible. It's, does this feel like a striped cloth going from light to shadow, from light to shadow? Does this feel like an actual mug? Can I feel the curve of the form? Does it feel like it's ceramic? Does this feel like a cast shadow? Does it feel like there's a little bit of light in the background there? Do you see what I mean? Like, this is what I'm interested in knowing. Something is bothering me here, and it feels like that's a little bit too dark. I may try lightening it. I think it's the right colour. I just feel like it's visually, it's bothering me a bit that this feels like it's standing out. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's standing out in the painting. I'm not 100% sure why. It's better. So what I want to know is, like, does the painting work visually? Am I creating a visual impression that works? Not, does it look exactly the same as the photo? Because at the end of the day, it's a painting. And if you spend your life, I mean, you absolutely can, you know, there are photorealists that do paint and try to get their paintings to look exactly like the photo. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's not an aesthetic that I like particularly, personally, because for me, painting is about feelings more than anything else. In these streams, what I'm trying to do is to teach you something, hopefully anyway, about the vocabulary of painting, the vocabulary that you can use to express how you feel about something. So does it work as a painting? Does it feel like light and shadow, and is there form without the photo being there? Anyway, little aside. Let's have a quick mess with these little dots. I'm going to put them in pairs, like a light one and one in the shadow. Yeah, Michelle says, I was wondering how you were, I'm just going back through the comments now. So a lot of these comments came in a little while ago, but she says, I was wondering how you were going to soften those stripes. Michelle, to be honest, I didn't even think about it before I started painting. I probably should have. Given that a little bit of thought. I think actually the yellow might be too high chroma, if anything. I think maybe it should be a little bit darker. Here you go, Elena. Yeah, just for you, ceramics with pattern. Jacqueline says, when you work on a much larger painting, how do you do a complete color blocking and then still have wet paint for edge handling? Simplify it even more. I mean, I've got a flower painting here that I did a color blocking for first, a smaller one, and then I did the actual painting. I'm just trying to remember. I think what it is I do as much as I can, edge handling as I can, early on, but if it's a big painting, I pretty much know that I'm going to be working on each area like in multiple layers. So, you know, I'll tend to work, once I'm past the blocking stage, I'll work on a particular area and do whatever edge handling I need to do in that area. Does that make sense? And you can also, if you're if you're working into an oil layer, then you can soften the edges of each bit as you go, you know. But it's more complicated, obviously. It takes a bit more care. The main thing that I think is really interesting about this is how dark that color is in the white stripes in the shadow, and how it actually works all the same anyway. Sandra says, is it just my screen, or does the top right of the corner look bent? Here, right? It's definitely not bent. It's probably just a little bit of paint. Maybe behind, or it might be a shadow of a light or something like that. I'm not sure. To be fair, I haven't been too careful with my light setup today, and they're not exactly level. That may be having an effect. Maybe if I bring this light up a little bit, that might solve it. Now you can paint a temple like this. Nice. Yeah, maybe one day. Softening, Anne says, softening the mug shadow made a huge difference. Yeah. The softening is like you get the colours in the right place and you squint to see if it looks right, if it's looking like light and shadow. But when you soften it, that's when it all comes together. See, I like paintings like this that are done with big brushes and are very loose. You know, I personally, the aesthetic that I like in painting is not one of very careful lines and exact finish. You know, I like life. But I like the colours to be right, you know. So Lynn says, this is great. When you started on... oh, I just lost that comment. Where did it go? When you started on the stripes, I thought, oh my God, way too dark. Now that you have it blocked in, it's brilliant. Yeah, that is the lesson. I mean, that is today's lesson, you know. It's not perfect, but it works as light and shadow. And those colours did look totally wrong, didn't they? Looked totally wrong. So Jacqueline says, yeah, so if this was a very large painting, perhaps you would have softened edges on the background before adding the mug. Yeah, most likely. Yeah, most likely. But then, you know, if it was a very large painting, I know people do, but I personally wouldn't paint a subject like this that large. It would have a lot more things in it, you know. Renee says, did I miss something or the dots fell off? Yeah, I mean, I put them on, but they've just, you know, they just slipped off. Anyway, we've got to do it now. We've got to put the dots on. Let's get some dots on there. So I'm going to do them in pairs, as I say, one in light and one in shadow for each colour, okay? Where should we go first? I think the red one will be good to do. So I'm going to mix up the red in the light. Now it's quite light. It's like I would say it's about a value 4 in the light. I'm going to start off with quinacridone rose. I want it to go a little bit more slightly orange, and I want to drop the chroma. So I'm going to put a little bit of raw umber in it, and then a little bit of white. So I'm after about a value 4 here. That's looking a little bit too dark. A bit lighter. Still a little bit too blue-red, I think, probably, and a bit too chromatic. So I'll bring in a little bit more raw umber. So raw umber, really, really handy. It's like, where do I want to send this color? I want it to go a little bit more orange, and I want to drop the chroma. Raw umber will do both of those jobs. If I wanted it to go more blue and drop the chroma, I would be more likely to use black instead to drop the chroma, because that would make it more blue, you know. I'm going to have to bring in some transparent red oxide because it's not going orangey enough. I want it a bit more orange. So I use a blue red instead of like a cad red because it means it covers, I can make it go more orange if I want to, and it kind of covers the, that's a bit dark. It covers the blue reds on the orange reds, because I can either put transparent red oxide in it to make a low value orange red, or I can put cad yellow in it to make a higher value orange red. Trying to get it to about a value 4. That looks like it's probably about right. Going to go about here. I'm just going to wipe off a little bit because I don't want it to mix too much with the paint that's already there and look weird. Look weird isn't a very descriptive way of putting it. I don't want it to change the colour by mixing with the colour of the mug. I'll use a small hog to put it on. The nice thing about doing this one first as well is that I can also put that little highlight on if I get it in the right place. Nice. A little white highlight on the top. Actually in the red. I'm going to make it a bit bigger because it needs to line up with these, and I put those a bit too far to the right. So I'm going to have a bigger dot just so I can get the white highlight in. Go on, round we go. I know they should all be the same size, but maybe on my mug, in my painting, they don't all have to be the same size. Colour looks about right. It's a little bit lighter in the middle. I wonder if that's like just the paint or a highlight. When I say just the paint, I mean the paint that's actually on the mug, not the on the painting. Little highlight. It doesn't quite line up, but I want to put it in anyway, so I will. And then in shadow, right, it's really dark, the one in shadow on the other side. So just transparent red oxide, a little bit of quinacridone rose, very dark value, and it's around here. See if I can do it with one stroke. So we're trying to show, oh, careful Paul. We're trying to show the difference between the shadow and the light. So the one on the left hand side hasn't gone dark enough yet. It's about red oxide. I'm going to put some black in it. Black. I was trying to bring that value right down. It's nowhere near dark enough. It's like, it should be almost black, really. Let's put some black in it. Such a shame. If I'd have hit that color perfect the first time, I could have left it alone. And done it in a single stroke. So now we can feel like light and shadow. I could even make the one on the right even slightly lighter to make it a bit more obvious, the difference. It's just like with these stripes, you know, I want a version in the light and a version in the shadow. What should we do next? The yellow one. Let's do the yellow one next. So in the light, it's a bit more chroma than the stripes. It's a little bit lighter, but it's not like full-on chroma. Slightly orangey yellow, so cad yellow, a little bit of transparent red oxide to make an orange yellow, white, bring it up to like about a value 8. That chroma is going to be too high, I think. Yeah, a little bit too high, so I'm bringing a little bit of raw umber to drop it. The chroma a little bit. Just going to kind of judge this one by eye about a value 8. Can probably just paint this one straight on, but I need to get a fresh brush for each one. Otherwise, you know, if I use my red brush, then obviously it would mix with the red and that would be bad. No, we don't want that. Yellow dot. I made that red dot way too big. Never mind. Emma Bridgewater would no doubt be horrified. Okay, so the one in shadow is about here. That wants to be lower in value, so it's about the same value as the shadow. It's about a value 4, but we want a bit more chroma. What's that value? Orange. So cad yellow on its own is being way too green. So I'm bringing quite a bit of transparent red oxide in with it too until I get about a value 4, a bit darker. It's mostly orange. It's an orange basically, that color there. Yellow in the shadow is basically an orange. Yellow in the shadow. You can see the color on the palette, right? It's orange. But you read it as yellow because your brain is telling you, yeah, this corresponds to this one. It's a yellow dot. But it's not. What I just painted on there was a value for orange, but you read it as yellow, right? It's maybe a tad dark. The blue one, it's value 5, very low chroma. It's going to go like about here. So I've got 2 of these because there's one on the inside as well, but that's much darker. Do you remember I was saying the value here is darker than the value here? So we want white. Some black. About a value 5 I'm looking for. Too much black. And a little bit of cobalt blue, but not too much, because it's very, very low chroma. It's a lot closer to grey than you'd think, that blue. So I mixed black and white, and then I added a little bit of blue. Maybe not enough yet, but let's see. The value is about right. It's about a 5, a little bit dark. Bring it up a little bit. I think that chroma is about right. Let's whack it on there and see. Yet another brush has to come out. Thankfully, I've got lots of these little hog filberts. I'm going to put him about here. Oh, too light. I lightened it too much. Look at that. You can see it doesn't quite work, right? So I bring some more black in. A little bit more blue so I don't use too much chroma. And now what I put on now is going to mix with what's already there. So I need to overshoot the value a little bit now. A little bit darker. That's better, but it's not dark enough and it's too chromatic. So, I mean, that's really close to grey. I'm surprised it still looks too chromatic. But it just goes to show colours are often, always, almost always, darker than you think. That's getting there now. But because I had to adjust it a few times, it's kind of lost its clarity. It's much better if you can just get a colour down and it be right the first time. So the dark one, the dark version is almost black. So I'm just going to get some black, mix it into this, and I'm going to put the dark blue dot in here. It's a pair. Oh, that went a bit too dark. So this is the pair of this. And we've got another one like up and to the left, but it's slightly greenish, that one. So I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to use green gold. If you don't have green gold, you could put a little bit of Cagello with some blue. Just make sure that your chroma is low enough. So bring enough black in. Or actually, I'll use raw umber this time because it's a yellowish green. Bring it down to about the same value. About value 4, maybe a little bit lower. We'll pop this one in. Hopefully this will be about right. It's very close to grey, this one. Slightly green, but very close to grey. These colours, I mean, you look at this pot, and if you don't really think about it, this is like the difference between being a painter and someone who just looks at something. You know, you just look at these colours, and they look quite bright, but they're not. Actually, a lot of them. The red is, but all of the rest of them, pretty low chroma. Maybe that's part of the attraction of this, part of what the designer has done, you know, is there's a bit of red here as well. I've annoyed myself a little bit by making that the red one's so big, so I'm going to try and cut it down a little bit now. I'm probably just going to spoil it, and I should leave it alone. In fact, every fibre of my being is saying, stop, Paul, don't do that. And you see how I've destroyed the feeling of the form on the cup now? It's very difficult to, on the mug, it's very difficult to get that back once you've lost it. So in this painting, my red dot is going to be permanently bigger than all of the others. I can't do anything about it now. What we've got? Oh, we've got these lovely phthalo green ones, deep blue-green. So we want cobalt, phthalo green, less phthalo green because it's very, very powerful. I'm going to bring some white into it, but not too much. And I'm also most likely going to have to add some black to bring that chroma right down. The value here is really low. It's like about a value 3, value 2, 3, something like that. Blue-green. What value have I got there? About a 2 to a 3. That should probably do it. Fresh brush. I'm going to get a synthetic out now because I'm beginning to run out of hogs that are good enough to do this with. We've got one up here. Now this one is interesting. I'm just going to paint it in, but it actually goes across the highlight. So I'm going to be true to where I've put my highlight on my mug, rather than it be. I should have wiped that out actually, but never mind. Rather than trying to put it exactly like that. What I'm getting at is that there's a lighter strip. See, this is now, it's mixed with the color that I painted the mug with, and it's raised the value a little bit. That's getting better now. But there's a lighter bit. And it is the highlight travels through, the highlight that goes down the side of the mug travels through that spot there. So I want to put that in really subtly. Black, phthalo green, a little bit of cobalt blue to send it more blue. This time I'm going to wipe out where this next green dot goes, which is about here. I think all my dots are a little bit big. Emma's spacing, when she painted the mug, if indeed she did paint this mug, is much nicer than mine. Her spacing is more careful, and her dots are smaller with more space in between them. And I was right, as I prophesied earlier on, that all my dots are different size, and they're supposed to be all the same size. But at least she didn't have to worry, when she did her version, she didn't have to worry about whether it looked like it was in light or in shadow. You know, we've got a more difficult job. It's coming though, right? This is so much fun to paint. These little bits at the end where you put the little details on, you know. Actually, normally I go for kind of, the paintings that I do for myself are generally quite low chroma. They're kind of, I would say, it's probably fair to say they're kind of, how would I describe it? I don't know. I try to kind of, for them to have a sort of a feeling to them, an expression, and they're often quite soft and muted color, and I guess that's just something that I like. But actually, I'm really enjoying painting. This is a happy painting. You know, my paintings aren't usually often happy, although I'm not particularly an unhappy person. But my paintings aren't often very happy paintings. But this is a happy painting. The only thing that's bothering me, it's really bothering me, like how big I made this red dot. I'm going to try and fix it, just because it's a pain. You know, it's one of those things that I know I should leave it alone, but I just really want to do something about it. So I'm going to risk the painting to make the red dot smaller. I'm not keeping up with the comments. I don't know if anyone is saying, yeah, but your red dot is too big. So probably someone, at least someone has said that. If someone has said that, I agree. But now I've got a hairy red dot, although the size is better. So, you know, if you were designing this mug, you'd be like, yeah, but there's a space here that isn't quite right. Oh, we've got a little bit of the green one in light. That's nice. On the inside. So this green, let's get a lighter version of the green one. Still very close to grey. Just a little bit of it poking up there. That's nice. Not too obvious. I want to bring out the handle a little bit more now. I can see bring a little bit more light into the handle because it looks at the moment like it's not quite belonging to the mug. So the lesson is, like, spend time on the palette first and get the colors as close as you can. You know, that the chromaMagic app is such a useful tool to help you avoid, basically, I think it's worth saying, avoid spending years getting your colors really badly wrong. You know, you absolutely can learn that way. Like, people get a bit funny about using apps like this, or, you know, the chromaMagic app particularly, or even Munsell as a whole. And you know what? I think they're a little bit jealous because that's not how they learned. And I think they realize that they actually could have learned an awful lot quicker. So they find things to criticize. Use any tool that's available to help you learn. Is it going to make you a brilliant painter by itself? No, painting is about more than just accurate color and being able to create form. It's about a lot more than that. But that is a lot of it. You know, that's, as I say, that's the vocabulary that you start with. So what I'm trying to give you with these little Friday sessions is an insight into the vocabulary. I'm trying to give you tools that you can use to help you develop the vocabulary more quickly and more efficiently, more effectively. That's what I'm trying to do. Occlusion shadow. It's going to need softening, but I'll put it in. The occlusion shadow is just the darkest part of the form where there's no light can go, basically. It's what makes things appear to sit properly on a surface. I think we're pretty much there. So, all right, I couldn't do it in an hour. I thought, well, I'll try and do it in an hour. Let's see if I can do it in an hour. It's actually taken me more like, because I was probably yakking for about 15 minutes at the start, like I normally do. It's probably taken like an hour and a half. But I hope it was, I really wish I'd put that dot higher up, but I hope that this has been useful, you know, and to show you a little bit more about, you know, whether I end up with a really nice painting. I do like this painting, but whether I end up with a really nice painting here is kind of beside the point. What I want you to get is, it's all about the light and the shadow. And it's about, you know, it really is about nailing those colors and having them work. Bottom dots. Oh, oh yeah, look at that. I'm so busy dealing with the actual colors that I'm doing. I'm forgetting to put. I missed a couple of bits. That's the classic, you missed a bit. Isn't it? I'm so ready for a pizza. Oh, and there's a green one. Gonna have to mix that colour again. You see, you give me a hard time, Michelle, making me put everything in that's supposed to be in the painting. Watch me spoil it by rushing now. I'll get this colour wrong and I'll rush and it'll be wrong. This is like the green. That's definitely got too much chroma. I'm not putting that on. More white, more raw umber, drop the chroma. The one thing that I kind of do wish is that I would have been a bit more careful about the spacing of my dots, to be fair. And then it's a blue one as well. I wish I'd been a little bit more careful, because that would have I think it's just my OCD kicking in and saying there's too much space in the pattern here. But you know, it's a demo. So have we got light and shadow? That's what matters here. Did we manage to get the colors? Did I manage to show you what I hoped that I was going to be able to show you? There's some interesting little reflected light in here, actually. I shouldn't really put it in because I suspect what it is that it's from a computer screen on the other side of the room. And I just kind of forgot to put in the left side of my shadow box when I took the photo. But, you know, I guess you could argue that it's there, so it should be part of the painting, really. But I don't want to put it in too strongly. It does feel like ceramic, and that's basically down to the values. So when someone was saying earlier on, the light side looks white. Yeah, it does, but it's not quite. Because if the light side is painted white, then you can't get the little highlights in to show. Got to be really careful I don't get any phthalo green in my stripes here. To show that the mug is ceramic. Fun challenge, tricky for sure. Especially the edge handling bit is probably the most challenging part because I had to do the edge handling after I'd put the stripes in. What could you do different to make that easier? Well, you could possibly try not painting the whole thing alla prima or softening them a little bit less. But then I don't think the painting would work as well. You know, I don't think it would work as well. It is a happy painting, Claire says. Good. Alan says, why are you not concerned about values when taking paint direct from the tube and then mixing with an unmatched value? I'm always concerned with value. I'm concerned with value more than anything else, in fact. So I'm not sure I get what you're asking me. Try and get that dot to follow the form. The nice thing about these dots down here is that they follow the curve of the mug, so you get to show a little bit, you know, how it curves there. Why are you not concerned about values when taking paint direct from the tube and then mixing an unmatched value? I suspect what you're seeing me do is what I would kind of think of as rough and ready mixing. So I know the value that I want. So when I teach mixing, especially on my colour course, I teach you to always mix the same values together. In practice, there comes a point where you've done enough of it, where you don't have to be all that careful. You know, because you know the value that you're after. You know what you're looking for. You know what you want. So you can afford to mix a lot more freely. It's a little bit like the analogy I often use is it's like learning to drive a car. Like when you're first learning to drive a car, it's incredibly complex and you have to think clearly about everything that you do. Once you've learned, it becomes a lot easier, and a lot of what you do, like if you have to suddenly brake because something comes out in front of the car, you don't actually have to think about it. You just do it. You know, you don't think about putting the clutch in when you change gear unless you drive an automatic. You just do it. And it's a bit like that. Everything is like that. Drawing, colour mixing, all of it. It's all kind of like that. Now I'm wondering if I brought down the exposure of the camera too much. I don't know, maybe that's about right. But there we go. I really hope you all enjoyed today. Heather says the little spots Session reminds me of those Rubik's Cubes I painted once. Oh, I've never thought of painting one of those. That would be a brilliant colour challenge, though, actually, to put chromaMagic through. That really would be a good colour challenge. To see, like, you know, light and shadow versions of the same colours. What I've done quite a lot is actually painted actual cubes, different colours, and then done paintings of the cubes. Laura says, how large is the panel? It is probably too small. It's 5 by 7 inches. Donna says, lovely, but my dots would have been all different sizes. Yeah, but mine are, you know, I mean, that's not that accurate from, you know, if you're looking at, it's not so much whether it's accurate to the photo or not, it's just that I suspect that Emma Bridgewater wouldn't have put her dots in quite that place, you know, but we get away with it, you know. Marcia says, there's a tiny bit of blue on the top edge of the left big red that might help the open space feel less large if you put, I don't know what. I'm not sure what you mean, Marcia. Stencil the dots, Ellen says. Yeah, but then you'll just get, you'll have to put, you'd have to wait until your painting was dry to do that. But you could do it. Listen, I'm absolutely, I don't know if it's coming out on the mic, but my tummy is rumbling. And I really need to go and get my dinner. So I hope this was fun. I hope it was interesting. Do have a go at this. It is a tricky challenge. You probably want to spend longer over it than I just did. But, you know, have a bash. What's the worst thing that can happen is that you learn something, which is a pretty good result no matter what, isn't it, really? You know, can't get better than that. You can absolutely do it. chromaMagic, the value scale. The two of them together can help you learn color mixing. They can help you learn to nail your values. You know, can really get you to a point where the basic vocabulary isn't a problem for you anymore, and you can start to think about what you want to say with those words that you've learned, with that grammar that you've learned, the language. You know, that's what this is about. If you want to make small happy paintings, then brilliant. You know, that's where you go and you make small happy paintings. Lots of people do, and they're beautiful. If you want to express other things, you know, then that's where you go. But if we're painting representational painting, we're all using the same language. Value, edges, drawing, and colour. That's the vocabulary that we've got to work with. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. If you're on my email list, you're going to get an email probably tomorrow. Going to have a little workshop opening up soon. Maybe in a couple of weeks we'll probably start, but I'll open the sign up, I think, probably this weekend or early next week. We're going to do probably 6 of these. Here's the one that we did on the little free course yesterday. Similar kind of thing, you know. I mean, obviously this is silver, but the pattern was done the same way, light and shadow colours, and then putting it on. We're going to have lots of they're kind of challenges, really, and then I'm going to break them down for you and show you how using chromaMagic and the value scale you can evolve your language. That's the goal that I set myself for over the 6 weeks of this workshop that's coming up, that I will help you evolve your vocabulary of painting and understand how to get the colours to work, to create depth and life. And I'm actually very happy with this painting, and I think it's probably going to end up framed on the wall at some point. Listen, it was lovely to see you all again. Thanks for coming. Next Friday, there will be another Friday Live. Not sure what the challenge is going to be, but something or other. We'll see what's coming. Have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye for now.